Cheating is a pretty serious problem in the world of video games. It ruins the fun for regular players, and in extreme cases, it can even lead to the downfall of a game when hackers overrun its servers and make it completely unplayable. However, although cheating is generally looked down upon, in some cases, developers actually want the player to do it. They want you to cheat, so you better not keep on waiting. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 video games that want you to cheat. Number 10. Use shortcuts or lose. LEGO Racers. The name LEGO Racers should be pretty self-explanatory. It's a game where you build your own LEGO car and then go up against other yellow plastic racers. The game's obviously targeted at children, but the thing is, even as an adult, winning the Legoland tournament without cheating is nigh impossible. Each track in the game contains one or several secret shortcuts that allow the player to skip large chunks of the map. It's a really efficient way of getting ahead in the race, as only the player can use them. Using them is also the only viable strategy when going up against the game's final boss. Called Rocket Racer, the champion of the tournament is a slick space-themed driver that relies on speed and wormholes to get to first place. He'll usually get way ahead of the other cars within the first few seconds of the race, so your only chance of closing the gap is to use the map's shortcut and a few wormhole bricks. After all, the developers made those shortcuts for a reason. Number 9. Explore the office with cheats. Stanley Parable. The Stanley Parable is already a title that tries its best to go against most gaming convention. It's always looking for ways to subvert your expectations and take jabs at things that other games might have taught you over the years. Add cheating to the mix and it's basically a match made in heaven. Unlike other games, the Stanley Parable wants you to cheat because that way it has more chances to mess with your expectation. Whether you're looking for exploits or trying your hardest to go against what the game's narrator is suggesting, Stanley Parable is always prepared to surprise you with an offhand comment or sometimes even an entire section dedicated to your attempts at cheating. The best example of this is the serious room that the player gets thrown into when they try to use the Source Engine's cheat screen. This will immediately teleport the player into a small, dimly lit room where the narrator chastises them with minutes of dialogue describing the seriousness of their surroundings. Obviously, the developers wouldn't put so much effort into these cheating preventions if they didn't want the player to use them. It's not a slap on the wrist, it's a wrist-adjacent encouragement, celebrating your inquisitiveness. Number 8. Cheat the puzzle and win the game. The Witness. Similar to Stanley Parable, The Witness is a game that loves to test its players' curiosity. Most of its puzzles are based on noticing something peculiar in the game's environment and then using it to your advantage. In fact, if you're particularly inquisitive and open to experimentation, the game will even allow you to cheat your way into an early victory. The first level in Witness contains a hidden puzzle that allows the player to travel to a special area, complete with a special secret ending. All you need to do is ignore the actual puzzle near the entry gate and try to cheat the system by looking at the sun and connecting it to a pylon. The hidden puzzle is almost deliberately designed to let bored and nosy players discover something fun. It's as though the developers knew some people might immediately lose interest in their puzzle and then try to look for an exploit to spare themselves from solving it. Let's just say that cheating in The Witness can be a pretty rewarding experience. Number 7. Just buy the achievements. NieR Automata. It's not really uncommon to see someone cheat in order to get an achievement that they really want. However, it is a rare occurrence to come across a game that simply gives the player the option to cheat, just like NieR Automata. That's right, in NieR, if you don't feel like working hard for your achievements, you can simply buy them. Once you complete the game 3 times, you can unlock a special merchant in the camp of the Resistance that will allow you to purchase 27 achievements with in-game currency. Now, buying achievements is something that probably wouldn't fly with your perfectionist friends who got the achievements legitimately. But on the other hand, the secret shop is there for a reason. It's the game's way of rewarding you for already beating it 3 times. It basically wants you to treat yourself for all the hard work you put in so far, so why not spoil yourself a little? Number 6. A legacy of cheating. The Sims 4. Cheat codes have been a part of the Sims series since the very first game. Any person who's played The Sims knows most of them by heart and has used them at least once. Maxis was never covert about the cheat codes, and with each new generation of The Sims, they added even more functionality to them. The reason for this is that while some of them can definitely give you an unfair advantage, their main purpose is to enhance the regular gameplay of The Sims. The developers want you to test out their cheat codes because using them can help you be more creative with designing your homes and playing with your Sims. A true testament to this fact is that The Sims 4 includes several new cheat codes that exist solely for entertainment. You can turn people's heads into toilets and enlarge them until they take take up half the screen. It's not there to reward cheaters, but simply to let everybody have some fun. Number 5. Blood Code, Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat is one of the goriest franchises in gaming. The entire identity of the series rests upon brutal fatalities and being able to see just how badly your blow crushed your opponent's skull, ribcage, and more, delicate parts of the body. Mortal Kombat obviously wants you to experience all the violence it has to offer, but it wasn't always able to do it as openly as it does these days. Back in the age of the original Mortal Kombat for the SNES and Sega Genesis, the game had to be more discreet about showing blood on the screen, so the developers decided to hide it behind a nifty little cheat code. The so-called blood code is one of the best known cheat codes in video game history, possibly only slightly less famous than the Konami code from Contra. Its only purpose is to turn on the blood animations in the game, turning Mortal Kombat into the gory spectacle it was always meant to be. Number 4. Wave Dashing, Super Smash Bros. Wave Dashing is an exploit in Super Smash Bros. That allows the player to gain some momentum and move across the map without breaking their combo. The trick is performed by air dodging diagonally, which causes the character to slide and move forward without the game registering it as an action. Wave Dashing was not intentionally put into the game, and since it exploits the game's physics engine, you could think of it as cheating. However, it's a cheat that's being used by everyone in the Super Smash community and one that has a well-established history within the series tournaments. For this reason, the game's creators, despite Sakurai himself disliking the technique at first, decided to legitimize it and eventually turned it into a proper mechanic within the series. Every title after Brawl not only includes wave dashing, but it's also pretty open about it. Still, the move started off as an exploit, even if the game and eventually the game's developers wanted you to use it. Number 3. Warp Pipes, Super Mario Bros. Warp zones are an iconic part of the Mario series, and one of the earliest examples of how a game can integrate cheating into its gameplay. The original Warp Zone was a secret location in Super Mario Bros. That the player could only access by jumping outside of the level's boundaries and then moving past the edge of the screen. After that, the player could use the pipes in the warp zones to skip to different levels without playing any of the previous ones. Though the method of reaching warp zones was very much an exploit, the warp zones themselves were a deliberate choice made by the developers. The pipes were meant to serve as a reward that allowed veteran players of Super Mario Bros. To play their favorite levels without having to beat the entire game every single time. Still, back in the day, Nintendo really wanted you to cheat really hard for your reward. Number 2. Look at other people's screens. Screen Cheat. Screen Cheat is a couch PvP first-person shooter that's inspired by the age-old tradition of, well, screen cheating. The entire premise of the game revolves around what your less than reputable friends would usually do when they wanted to sneak up on you in PvP matches. Because every single character in the game is invisible, the game makes the players look at their opponent's screen in order to know their location and where to aim. For this reason, you could almost call Screen Cheat a unique kind of second-person shooter, and you can definitely call it the perfect training ground for mastering your skills at gaining unfair visual advantages. Because cheating is not just desirable, but pretty much necessary in Screen Cheat, you quickly learn how to use other players' perspectives to find them. Of course, if you're the type of person who's already doing stuff like that in other games, then Screen Cheat will be a piece of cake for you. You ought to love a game that's not afraid of teaching its player base the 101s of being a terrible person. Number 1. An Endless Battle, NOITA. NOITA is a roguelike platformer in which the player controls a hooded mage trying to explore a bottomless dungeon filled with monsters and dangers. The game's magic mechanics are ridiculously in-depth. However, if you ask any NOITA veteran about what makes the game truly special, the answer will usually be the hidden secrets left by the developers. In truth, one's adventure with NOITA doesn't end or even begin when they defeat the game's final boss. It begins once they start looking into ways to cheat and exploit the game. The game's creators are notorious for leaving cryptic messages, clues, and lore pieces for those players who are willing to find ways to break the game. It usually begins with players discovering ways to create powerful game-breaking spells, which then leads them to secret locations, alternative bosses, and finally puzzles that become the talk of all of NOITA's community. The cat and mouse game between the developers and the players is seriously intense. It's gotten to the point where people discover QR codes with hints while mining the game's script, or use cheats to find hidden levels inside hidden levels of other hidden levels. Key takeaway: if you're not exploiting this one, you're not playing it right. That's the end of our list, but let me know down in that comment box if you can think of any other examples of video games that absolutely want you to cheat. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm @JessMcDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more gaming goodness.